The Nubia Z17 Mini, in my opinion, is the perfect example of how to turn a really good or possibly even very good or better phone into just a good one, just by making one wrong decision when it comes to specs. Because in my opinion, specs after all can matter, which is this time the case with the Snapdragon 652. In my opinion, they should have, like on the Z11 Mini, used something like the Snapdragon 625 or maybe 626. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of the 652 in this combination, it doesn't mean that the phone isn't legit, but it just isn't, I think, as broadly appealing as it would have been with the 652. But if it maybe is the right one for you, I'll let you know. So let's switch and talk about the design and build quality. And no complaints here in terms of build quality, because it feels very solid, very nice buttons, they click very well. They don't maybe have an audio click, but a very nice tactile click. And therefore, of course, as you can see here, this is one thing that I just have to mention, because the finish here is very, very smooth and attracts quite a lot of sweat. Of course, here even more so in the hot studio. But yeah, that has to be mentioned. Due to it being quite small though, and one hand usability being quite good, it can be managed quite nice because it's easy to hold on to. But like I said, the smooth finish is a little bit slippery. Other than that though, it's very well built. Like I said, everything is right, nothing really creaks, everything is solid. The fingerprint reader as well, because that one is very reliable. It is just not the very fast one, as you can see here in terms of screen turn on time, because once the screen is already on, then it works nice. But the better the phones just recently turn on just a little bit faster. Otherwise, we have the dual camera, we have the LEDs, of course we have a microphone and the headphone jack. On the left side, SD card and SIM card tray. On the bottom, USB Type-C, the speaker on the right and the microphone on the left. Buttons are, in my opinion, placed just about right, easy and conveniently to reach. We have a notification LED, we have the breathing light, which is the notification LED. I'm not quite sure why I always show it at the point, because I'm just used to it so much. This is on the bottom. I'm still not the biggest fan of that solution for one reason, because this already is red, and if it lights up in bright daylight, you don't really notice it so much. So it's a little bit too subtle to actually be noticed. Of course, two buttons, they can be reversed, and it is still something very weird, because it seems that every different iteration of Nubia, the buttons do something else, and I will get to that a little bit later on. But as you can already see here, the bezels, moderately sized, not super small, but very nice. We have a nice transition towards the side. It is pretty much flat glass, but otherwise it feels great and very comfortable in the hand. And that's why I would say it's time to go into the display. And as always, I have to point out one thing when it comes to the display. We have an option to adjust it a little bit, because we have a color temperature control along with saturation controls for glow. As you can see here, natural and standard. I liked it the way it was. Now, what about this display? The one thing that is not that great is the maximum brightness, because sunlight visibility with 435 lux isn't the very best one. But indoors is where I was absolutely pleased with this display, because the white point was set right, the black was okay with a typical amount of IPS glow, and the colors were just so nice. The calibration was good, viewing angles were nice. So it definitely is a very nice display, but maybe not for someone who needs a very bright one outdoors. So just to keep that in mind, viewing angles are also stable. What about the speaker? The speaker is good, nothing more, nothing less, because it's usually loud enough. It could be louder in some cases, but it doesn't have to be. And the quality is, I would say, quite nicely balanced. A little bit richer would have been nice, but it also isn't necessary. So no complaints, it is a very solid one, after all, not disappointing or so. Headphone jack is actually a little bit better, because that one is also good compared to a lot of other phones which are just average. So I'm happy with that. We actually have a little bit of customization options, which is also something a little bit weird though, since if we go here into sound, we will see that we have DTS effects. I need a headphone jack plugged in for that. For example, though, on the Nubia M2, we have Dolby audio, so I'm not quite so sure, but it definitely delivers quite a nice headphone sound. Now, what about the performance? And this is the thing already. Usually, you long press here to get to the recent apps, but yeah, you have to do it this time on the home button. So this is something that they switched up from recent times, but let's actually kill off all. The last one always doesn't get. So what about the loading times? As you can see here, it actually feels just a tad faster compared to a Snapdragon 625 phone when it comes to launch times, but really marginal and nothing that you would really ever notice. So yeah, it is better, but not a lot. And this is actually one of my kind of complaints, that I think the 652, even though it sometimes, at least on paper, can perform better than a 625, in normal use you wouldn't really even notice. And as you can see here, it actually sometimes tends to be a little bit more stuttery. Of course, this is due to the loading. So this is Yeah, as you can see here now, it performs nice, but it shows a little bit more lag than the 625. It is maybe sometimes a little bit smoother, but therefore not quite as consistent. I still like the performance, and overall, I would say for many people it would appear as the better performer compared to the Snapdragon 625. I would say though, just for being a little bit more consistent, I would go actually for the 625. But otherwise, in terms of multitasking, it is a little bit slow since you have to long press. But the capabilities are absolutely there with 4 gigs. There is even a 6 GB version. So no real complaints. It is absolutely a nice performer. But especially when it comes to efficiency is where it would have been better, but I'll get to that in just a few seconds. Gaming performance is also a little bit maybe better in terms of higher frame rates, a little bit, compared to the Snapdragon 625. But like I said, it has a few more frame drops. It's just not quite as consistent. It gets a little bit warmer, so especially in very warm situations, it could maybe throttle, but I don't see this to be an issue after all. You can play all the games still very nicely, absolutely moderate without any complaints. So here it's fine. But as I said, now I want to get into the battery, because a full charge takes 2 hours and 10. That could maybe vary depending on the charger you use. I use the stock one, and this is okay, I would say. 13% for an hour of YouTube is also, I would say, about average. But like I said, compared to the Snapdragon 625, what you here get in terms of battery life is maybe like half of it. You get noticeably less. I would say on mobile data, the difference is like maybe what I got about here, 4.5 hours on mobile data and 5 to 5.5 hours on Wi-Fi. You would have gotten very similar, for example, just the Z11 Mini, you would have gotten at least 6 hours on mobile data and up to maybe 9-10 hours on Wi-Fi. So the difference is there. Standby range was solid, but it is just nowhere near the Snapdragon 625. And the little bit occasional performance advantage you could have kind of gets diminished, and I would definitely prefer the better battery life and the kind of actually more consistent performance, but that is what it is. For me, after all, a little bit disappointing, but I'll leave you the judge for the rest. Now, software. Yeah, let's just point out the big thing that will be maybe a deal breaker for a lot of people, which is that it's still running 6.0.1. with the security patch of February, which is actually not even that bad. But after all, it is quite a dated software. The problem though is what many people don't know is that Nubia doesn't really need it in terms of features, because on the Z17 it already has 7.1.1, and I don't really see any extra features because we still have pretty much the same drawer. Then we get quick settings that we can activate. Okay, that is changed on Z11 because now it's on the bottom, but that doesn't really make a big difference because the overall functionality is still there. You still have multi-window, you still have edge gestures, which I've actually disabled, but you can with the swipe of 2 fingers, for example, change the brightness, switch between apps and so on. But the actual very important ones or actual useful ones for me are, for example, the 3 finger gestures where you can swipe between the apps, because this is actually then a faster solution than using the long press. But otherwise, in terms of features, yeah, you get what you want. You get a theme manager now. I definitely like the functionality. I definitely like the look of the UI, but it is dated and I don't think it will get any updates. I don't think it will ever see 7. I could be wrong. And just one thing to point out, this is the imported version from CECT shop that I got. So out of the box, it didn't run the Play Store. It does now. And most Google features and so on worked. For example, I didn't get Google Keep to work, but I guess this is more of a glitch because everything else seemed to have worked. And also notifications at start didn't. I had to tinker a little bit with that. So just so you know that. But I also have to point out that the imported version, at least here compared to Germany, is so much cheaper because this is like 229 euros, where it's 369 in Germany for the international version. That's quite a difference. Okay, let's check the camera. About the front face, I have to say just one thing. You have to be just farther away. As you can see here, if you're already this distance, it's just blurry. You have to get a little bit further, then it's okay, and even further away, it's back. So kind of arm's length stretched is what you will need, because as you can see here, so many times you just don't get it properly. This is, I would say, the ideal minimum distance, and then you get absolutely nice shots. But overall, just because of that, I can't give it more than maybe something like a quite good, really good, because after all, you can't go too close. Okay, I don't know how many people do this in this kind of distance, but yeah, that's a typical distance I use for my shots, and it is what it is. Video though, as you can see here, is absolutely nice because it is maybe a little bit oversaturated, a little bit grainy, but normal appearance is absolutely fine. And it is absolutely nice, especially indoors. As you can see here, the quality is absolutely delivering. And I would say that the video quality for the front-facing camera definitely are really good. So those are actually better because here you don't see it from a normal distance so much. Now, low light, not all that great. As you can see here, mostly, especially here, this was very early in the morning and it didn't get it quite so sharp. You will definitely notice that things look quite washed out. So yeah, maybe just about a quite good good low light camera. As you can see here, definitely not all that great. Shutter times and autofocus and so work quite fine, but the results aren't all that great. Now outdoors, I have to say here, things look very good, actually. Let's say really good, because as you can see here, nice details. Autofocus worked out nice, shutter times were nice, colors seem accurate, and overall landscape footage looks good. The exposure seems fine. So here I can't really complain. I've seen better results after all, but this is absolutely solid, especially for this price range. I've seen slightly better ones, but this is mostly in line with what you would expect. Now 4K video would have gotten at least a very good from my standpoint, just in terms of normal quality. But as you can see here, there are a few glitches sometimes visible. Also quite some artifacting. The autofocus, especially on 1080p 60, which you will see later, is a little bit, I would say, jumpy. In 4K, it's actually better. Of course, it's a little bit shaky, as you can see here. Yeah, no real stabilization or something like that. But the quality itself is fine. It's passable. But it's also nothing really out of the ordinary. Because if you are mostly shake-free, if you don't move too much, quality is fine. 1080p 60, as I said, is smoother, and here you don't see so much artifacting going on. As you can see, things look a little bit nicer. But what you will see here is the way more nervous and the whole time kind of twitching autofocus. And you will see this just about here on my hand once again. It always has this forward and backward pump. This is just something very unnatural, very unsubtle, something that I don't really like to see, because the quality actually would have been fine and I would have liked this, but this is just the case, and that's why I would say let's go pros and cons here. Okay, first of all, great design and build. I can't really change anything. It's maybe not super compact, but for the price, it feels very nice, very comfortable, and very nice after all. So, reliable fingerprint reader as well. The display is very good, maybe just not amazing for sunlight readability. Good speaker after all, a good headphone jack, which actually is more important just in terms of relation to the good speaker. Very good performance, decent battery life, a very nice UI, even though a little bit outdated, quite good front-facing cam, a really good front-facing video cam, decent low-light cam, really good main cam, and a quite good video cam. Now what's not that great, in my opinion, I just have to point out the smooth finish is a little bit slippery, not a huge issue since it's quite easy to hold on after all, but the battery life is noticeably weaker compared to the Z11 Mini with the Snapdragon 625, and you don't really see an actual improvement in terms of performance. Still on Marshmallow, and the video autofocus behavior isn't all the best. So this just leads me to one point. In terms of pricing at around $230 for the international or for the imported version, you still get quite a lot bang for your buck, but you have just a few issues. First of all, the battery life is just decent. I would have wished for more, because for everyone who decent is good enough, and you like all the rest because the design is nice, the display is really good, headphone, speaker, and all that is there. But for the pretty much same price already, you can get something a little bit more bulky with the Z11 Mini S, and then there are also a lot of 5.2 inches around, like for example the Samsung Galaxy A5 2017, the Moto G5 Plus, and I did already actually a comparison between the best ones in this price segment, which usually are a little bit more expensive, unless you get this one locally where it's noticeably more expensive. But the imported version is in terms of values noticeably better, but I just can't fully recommend it for the one reason that it's not really a step up over the Z11 Mini S that actually had nicer components. This one is mostly just better in terms of the camera a little bit and also the in-hand feel, because the design is improved and the display is now better. But the rest, I have to say, the Z11 Mini S actually offers more in terms of value, and there are just a lot of other phones that you should maybe at least check out. But there's nothing really wrong with it, but it's just not anything super exciting, something groundbreaking, something really amazing that I would have to recommend. If someone asked me, should I get this maybe, I would say sure. If you are okay with all the pros and cons, fine, because there's nothing majorly wrong with it. But like I said, the little bit something is missing for me. And that's where I'm gonna leave it. And I wish you a nice day. Comments maybe down there below, and a like, subscription, and a nice day. Bye.